It all started on a clear Saturday morning, the kind of day you expect to be peaceful when you live out on a quiet ranch by the lake. I was out by the water, cleaning up the shoreline and organizing a few things for the weekend, mainly prepping for a family barbecue and maybe even a little fishing with my nephews. Life out here is usually slow, deliberate, and full of silence that city folks wouldn't know how to appreciate. But that silence didn't last long, because that's when she showed up. Karen, president of HOA and self-appointed guardian of everyone else's business. Karen had a way of appearing like a storm cloud on a sunny day. Her SUV pulled up right near the shared gravel road that led to both our properties, tires crunching like a warning signal. She didn't even step out of the car before she started waving me down like I was trespassing on my own land. I got a call that someone was down by the lake, she said, stepping out, clipboard in hand as always. That's restricted access, per HOA Regulation 7B. You can't just use it like it's your personal dock. I raised an eyebrow and tried to stay polite. That's my lake access, Karen. It's on my deed. Always has been. But that didn't matter to her. She launched into a 5-minute lecture about how the HOA was reassessing property boundaries and considering the lake a community feature now, even though the lake sits directly against my property line and always has. I've got the title, survey, and water rights to prove it. The kicker. Karen doesn't even live on the lakefront. Her house is up the hill, 2 lots over, with barely a peek at the water from her upstairs bathroom window. Still, she treated it like it was hers to manage. I tried to brush it off, assuming it was just another one of her grandiose control moves. But I underestimated her commitment to causing problems. Not even a day later, I got a visit from the sheriff's department. Someone had called in a report, claiming I was illegally fencing off public property and limiting community access to a shared water feature. It didn't take long to figure out who had made the call. The deputy was polite and a bit amused once I showed him the documents. Deed, survey, water rights, all solid. The case was closed before it even started. But still, Karen had crossed a line. That night I sat on the porch, sipping some coffee and staring out at the lake. I wasn't angry, not really. I was something else, resolved. See, there's a thing about country folk Karen never quite understood. We don't take kindly to threats on what we've worked hard for. You push once, we'll warn you. Push twice, and we push back, quietly, legally, and decisively. I pulled up the county parcel map and started browsing. There's always land moving in and out around here. Lots get inherited, passed down, forgotten about. That's when I saw it. A narrow flag lot right between Karen's place and the main road. It had been owned by an out-of-state family for years, used once in a while to store trailers or equipment. But it was up for sale, probably part of an estate clearing. I didn't even hesitate. I made a cash offer first thing Monday morning, and within the week, the paperwork was signed. Now, here's the kicker, Karen's lot, while nice and all, has one flaw. It doesn't connect directly to the county-maintained road. Instead, it has a recorded easement across the very lot I had just purchased. For years, the previous owner didn't care. It wasn't worth fencing or blocking. But now it was mine, and with that came the right to manage access, approve usage, and if necessary, revoke permission. I didn't go scorched earth immediately. That's not my style. First, I sent her a letter via certified mail, politely informing her of the change in ownership. And that I was reviewing all recorded easements and access agreements. I asked for documentation showing her legal right to continue using the driveway, which, to be fair, was perfectly reasonable. You'd think that would have prompted a calm adult conversation. Nope. Within 48 hours, Karen was back at my property line, this time with 2 other HOA board members, arms crossed like some HOA mafia. She started demanding to know what game I was playing and accused me of intimidation tactics. I calmly pointed out that I was just asking for paperwork, nothing more, nothing less. If she couldn't produce it, I'd have no choice but to assume the easement was informal and revoke access until we reached a proper legal agreement. Well, that didn't sit well with her. She started shouting about lawsuits and community bylaws, which have no bearing on private property rights, mind you. I let her yell. Let her huff. Let her spin her wheels. Because I already knew what she didn't. I had already filed with the county to erect a private gate at the entrance to that lot. It was perfectly legal. And once it was up, there'd be no way to reach her property by vehicle unless she got my written permission. It took less than a week to install the gate. I thought maybe that would bring her around. Maybe now she'd realize she had overstepped, and we could come to some neighborly agreement. But Karen is not one to back down gracefully. Instead of reaching out to talk, she started trying to rally the HOA against me. Newsletters went out. Complaints were filed. Rumors spread that I was trying to privatize the lake. I even heard one about me planning to build a hotel. It was laughable. But here's the truth. I didn't need to win a popularity contest. I just needed to protect what was mine and make it clear I wouldn't be bullied, especially not by someone who couldn't even be bothered to learn the law before calling the cops on me. Funny thing is, after the gate went up, several neighbors, ones I hadn't heard from in years, started stopping by. A few brought pie. Some brought beers. All of them had stories. Turns out, Karen had been a thorn in everyone's side for a long time, but no one ever stood up to her. They all just hoped she'd eventually move. But hope isn't a strategy. Ownership is. And now, I owned the one piece of land Karen needed more than anything. Sure, here's a 1,000-word expansion of part 2 of your story, written in narrative style without a heading. The air was dry that morning when I looked out over the lake, watching the ripples move gently across the water like a slow breath. The ranch was quiet, peaceful. You'd never guess the chaos that had unfolded just a few weeks earlier. Karen, our beloved HOA president, self-declared ruler of all things, had tried to sabotage my sale of the lakefront, called the cops claiming I was violating public waterway laws, and stirred up enough trouble that the buyer backed out. And that should have been the end of it. She won. Again. But I'd had enough. The thing about owning property out here is that if you know the history, who bought what and when, who subdivided and sold off land in little bits and pieces over the years, you realize how connected everything is. Karen's little slice of heaven backed directly up to my property. In fact, her only access to the main road was via an easement road that crossed a corner of my lower field, something she took for granted. A gravel path barely wide enough for a truck, winding along the edge of the lake and through my pasture. It had been in place for decades, originally agreed upon in a handshake deal between her father and my grandfather. It was never formalized, never recorded, just understood. And that was her mistake. After the buyer dropped out, I started digging. Not metaphorically, I mean literally. I got a survey team out there the next week. I knew the corner of land Karen crossed daily might still technically belong to me, but I needed proof. The survey confirmed it. The easement she believed was hers didn't legally exist. It was my land, all the way to the creek bed that ran behind her lot. Then came the part that changed everything. I found out her lot was up for tax auction. Apparently, Karen had been so focused on policing everyone else's business that she had neglected to pay her own property taxes. For 2 years. I double-checked the records, called the county office to confirm. It was true. Her land was scheduled for auction in 3 weeks. No public notice had been posted yet, which meant she probably didn't know. I kept quiet. I waited. On auction day, I logged in, fully prepared. I expected competition. Karen's lot wasn't huge, but it was prime lakeside land with mature trees and views. But no one bid. No one except me. I won it for $6,800. I paid on the spot and filed the paperwork the same day. 2 weeks later, I had the deed in hand. Karen still had no idea. I waited until the following Monday to visit her. I pulled up in my truck, parked at the edge of what used to be her lot, and walked up to her porch. She opened the door with a practiced frown already on her face. What now? She snapped, arms crossed. I'm just here to deliver this, I said, holding out a certified letter and a folded document. She took them, confused. What is this? That's the deed to this land, I said simply. And the letter is a notice of revocation. Effective immediately, you no longer have legal access across my property. She laughed. What the hell are you talking about? I bought this parcel at the county auction. It's mine now. You can look it up. And since there's no recorded easement, your access to the road is now revoked. You're landlocked, Karen. The color drained from her face. You can't do that, she shrieked, flipping through the papers. You can't just kick me out. I'm not kicking you out. You can stay. But you can't drive across my land anymore. You'll need to find another way to access the main road. There is no other way. She shouted. That's not really my problem. She tried to slam the door, but I was already walking away. Over the next few days, she tried everything. Called the sheriff. Called the county. Even tried to get a judge to issue an emergency injunction. But the law was on my side. Her access was a privilege, not a right, and now it was revoked. That Friday, I installed a gate at the edge of the easement road. Locked. Posted, private property, no trespassing, signs along the fence line. I even had cameras put in, just in case she got any bright ideas. The real kicker. A week later, she listed the property. Apparently, being landlocked in the middle of nowhere didn't appeal to her anymore. She tried to sell, but buyers aren't stupid. No access, no deal. She dropped the price, then again. Nothing. And all the while, I made improvements. Cleared out the brush, added gravel along the shoreline, opened up a new section of the ranch for trail riding. The lake, the one she tried to keep me from selling, became the centerpiece of my new guest retreat area. I built a dock, put in a couple of kayaks, even set up some hammocks. People came out to fish and relax, and I charged them a day fee. It wasn't what I originally planned, but it worked. Every once in a while, I'd catch her watching from behind the tree line, her expression caught somewhere between fury and disbelief. She couldn't believe I'd turned the tables. But I had. One afternoon, a UPS driver called me, confused. He couldn't find a way to deliver a package to Karen's place. I just smiled and told him she'd need to pick it up at the depot. Eventually, she moved out. I never saw a moving truck, but one day the lights were off, and the porch was empty. The property sat vacant for months. Grass overgrew the walkway, the shutters hung crooked. Nature started to reclaim it. And I didn't mind one bit. I didn't buy the land out of spite, not entirely. It was more about setting a boundary. Karen had pushed and pushed, thinking rules didn't apply to her. She used the law as a weapon, manipulated systems, lied to law enforcement, and acted like queen of the lake. But she forgot the first rule of rural living: know your neighbors, and don't cross the wrong one. I made sure everything I did was legal. Documented. Above board. She couldn't sue her way out, couldn't argue with the title or the taxes or the recorded land use restrictions I placed on the parcel after I took ownership. It was all by the book. And now, every time I stand on the dock and look across the lake, I see the lot that once belonged to her. Empty. Silent. Peaceful. Just how I like it.